The wine hit my face with such force that I staggered backward, the vintage bottle slipping from my hands and shattering against the marble floor I had personally selected just 3 months ago. The Cabernet Sauvignon I had saved for this moment. For celebrating my dream property in Napa Valley. Now pooled around my feet like blood. Mason stood there, his face twisted with rage, still holding his empty glass. Behind him, Mom, Dad, and Peyton just watched. Nobody moved to stop him. Nobody said a word. "Don't come here causing trouble. You homewrecker," Mason snarled, stepping closer. I could taste the wine on my lips, bitter and stinging. My vision blurred. Not from tears, but from the shock of it all. This was my house. The house I had spent 11 years building my career to afford. The house I had poured every cent and every ounce of passion into designing. And I was being called a homewrecker in my own doorway. Mom finally spoke, her voice cold as ice. "This party is for real family only." That was the moment everything crystallized. 11 years of being the family ATM. 11 years of swallowing my hurt. 11 years of hoping they would finally see me as more than a checkbook with legs. It all came crashing down in that moment. I wiped my face slowly, feeling the expensive wine drip from my chin onto my silk blouse. Then I did something that shocked even myself. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? My voice came out steady, colder than I had ever heard it. I'm the sole owner of the property at 2847 Silverado Trail, Napa Valley. There are unauthorized individuals on my property who have just committed assault by throwing liquid in my face. I need police here immediately. The silence that followed was deafening. Mason's face went white. Dad grabbed his arm before he could lunge at me to snatch the phone away. Mom's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. But before I tell you what happened next, before I tell you how I made them pay for every single moment of disrespect, let me ask you to do something. If you have ever felt invisible in your own family, if you have ever been the one everyone expects to give but never receive, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel because you need to hear how this story ends. Drop a comment telling me if you have ever been in a situation where you had to choose between family and self-respect. Because what I did next changed everything. Now let me take you back to where it all really began. I was 12 when I first realized something was different about how my parents treated me compared to Mason. It was subtle at first. The way Mom's eyes would light up when Mason walked into a room, even if he had just been suspended from school for the 3rd time that semester. The way Dad would ruffle his hair and call him champ even after Mason had crashed Dad's car into a mailbox. When I brought home straight A's and a letter saying I had been accepted into the advanced placement program, Mom glanced at it and said, "That's nice. Dear. Can you help me with dinner? Your brother has soccer practice." I learned early that love in our family was conditional, and the conditions seemed impossible for me to meet. Mason could do no wrong. I could do no right. So I tried harder. I studied harder. I worked harder. I thought that if I could just be successful enough, accomplished enough, valuable enough, they would finally see me the way they saw him. By the time I turned 22, I had been accepted into one of the most prestigious interior design programs on the West Coast. The tuition was steep, but I had saved every penny from my part-time jobs throughout college. I was $3,000 short. I had worked so hard for this. When I went to my parents, sitting at the kitchen table where we had shared thousands of meals, where I had done my homework every night, where I had waited up countless times for them to notice me, I was hopeful. "I just need a small loan," I said, showing them the acceptance letter, my hands shaking with excitement. "I will pay you back. I have a payment plan all worked out." Dad did not even look up from his newspaper. "Valerie, you're 22 years old. It's time you learned to be independent. But you paid for Mason's culinary school," I said, my voice cracking. "And his car. And his apartment deposit when he moved out last year." Mom sighed. That disappointed sigh I had heard my entire life. "Your brother needs our support. He is finding himself. You have always been so capable, so self-sufficient. You don't need our help the way he does." Finding himself. At 24. Mason was finding himself while I was supposed to have it all figured out at 22. I left that kitchen table, and something inside me quietly broke. But I did not let them see it. I took out student loans. I worked 3 jobs while attending the design program. I slept 4 hours a night. I ate ramen for 2 years straight. And I became one of the top students in my class. That was 10 years ago. In that decade, I built Valerie Designs LLC from nothing. I started by doing small residential projects, then commercial spaces, and eventually landed contracts with boutique hotels and high-end restaurants. Every single dollar I made, I earned through sleepless nights, through dealing with difficult clients, through perfecting my craft until my work spoke for itself. I did not ask my parents for anything after that day, but they sure as hell asked me for plenty. It started small. Could I help Mason with his rent? Just this once? Could I lend Dad some money for a car repair? Mom needed a new refrigerator, and wasn't it nice that I could help family? Every single request came with the same underlying message. This is what good daughters do. This is how you show you care. This is how you earn your place in this family. And I gave. I gave because some pathetic part of me still hoped that one day, they would look at me with the same pride they showed Mason when he managed to hold down a barista job for 6 months. I gave because I thought maybe if I was generous enough, helpful enough, they would finally love me the way I needed to be loved. The property in Napa Valley was supposed to be my masterpiece. I found the lot 3 years ago. A 5-acre paradise overlooking the valley with views that made my heart stop. I spent a year designing the house, another year overseeing construction, and 6 months on the interior design. Every detail was intentional. The exposed beams reclaimed from a historic barn in Sonoma, the stone fireplace built by a 3rd-generation mason, the wine cellar that could hold 500 bottles, with climate control precision that would make a sommelier weep, the kitchen with marble countertops from Carrara, custom cabinets, and appliances that cost more than my first car. This was not just a house. This was proof. Proof that the girl who ate ramen and worked 3 jobs had made something of herself. Proof that I did not need their approval to be successful. Proof that I mattered. When I told my family I had finished the property, Mom's response was immediate. "Oh, how wonderful. You must have a New Year's Eve party. We can finally show everyone what you have accomplished." I should have known. I should have seen it coming. But I was so desperate for their approval, so hungry for them to be proud of me, that I missed every single red flag. Mom took over the planning immediately. She insisted on handling the guest list, the catering, the decorations. "You have worked so hard. Honey, let me do this for you." I thought it was her way of finally acknowledging my achievement. I thought maybe, just maybe, she was proud of me. I gave her my credit card for the expenses. I gave her access to the property. I gave her everything she asked for because I thought this time would be different. 3 days before New Year's Eve, I was in San Francisco closing a deal with a tech startup for their new headquarters design when Aunt Evelyn called me. Evelyn was my father's older sister, and the only person in my extended family who had ever truly seen me. When I was 12 and crying in her guest room after another fight at home, she had held me and whispered, "You deserve to be loved. Kiddo, don't ever let anyone make you forget that." "Val," she said, her voice careful, "I got an invitation to your New Year's party." "Oh, good." Mom said she was sending those out. "Sweetheart, the invitation says it is hosted by Donna and Jerry at the Napa estate. Your name is not on it." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "What do you mean my name isn't on it?" "The invitation lists your parents as the hosts. It has their names in gold embossing. Your name appears once, in small print at the bottom, as the designer of the property. That's it." I pulled up my email and found the digital invitation that Mom had sent me just to review. I had been so busy with work that I had barely glanced at it. Now, reading it carefully, I saw what Evelyn meant. Donna and Jerry cordially invite you to ring in the new year at their Napa Valley estate. Property designed by Valerie Designs LLC. Their estate. Not my estate. Mine. "Val, are you still there?" "I'm here," I said, but my voice sounded distant even to my own ears. "There's something else." I ran into Carol Martinez at the grocery store. She mentioned she was so excited to see Donna's new places on New Year's. She had no idea it was yours. I hung up with Evelyn and sat in my car in the parking garage for an hour. My hands were shaking. My mind was racing. I pulled up my credit card statement on my phone. The charges for the party had been rolling in for weeks. Catering, $18,000. Floral arrangements, $4,000. A custom champagne tower, $3,000. Premium open bar, $6,000. Valet parking service, $2,000. $33,000. On my credit card. For a party that was being presented as theirs. I called the caterer. Hi. This is Valerie calling about the New Year's event at Silverado Trail. Oh yes, Mrs. Donna has been wonderful to work with. She is so excited about the party at her beautiful new home. Her home. I felt bile rise in my throat. Just to confirm, the billing is going to the card on file. Correct? Yes. The card ending in 4,729. All set. That was my business card. I called the florist. Same story. I called the valet service. Same story. Every single vendor believed they were working for Donna and Jerry. Preparing their estate for their party? That night, I drove to Napa. I did not call ahead. I used my key to enter through the side gate and walked through the property. It was 10 p.m. The house was dark. I walked through every room I had designed, running my hands over surfaces I had selected. Looking out windows I had positioned to capture the perfect light. This was mine. I had bled for this. I had sacrificed for this. And they were stealing it. I went back to my hotel room and called Evelyn. I told her everything. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Val. Baby. This isn't new. This is what they have always done. They have always made you invisible. The only difference now is the price tag. What do I do? You already know what you need to do. The question is whether you are ready to do it. I spent the next 2 days preparing. I contacted my lawyer, Zelda Morrison, who had handled all my business contracts. I sent her documentation of everything. The property deed in my name only. The credit card statements, screenshots of the invitations. I had her draft a letter and prepare legal documents, just in case. And then I went shopping for the most expensive bottle of vintage wine I could find. A 1,982 Chateau Petrus that cost $4,000. If I was going to confront my family, I was going to do it in style. New Year's Eve arrived cold and clear. I drove up to Napa in the afternoon, letting myself into the property while the catering team was still setting up. The house looked stunning. The dining room table held an elaborate display of silver and crystal. The kitchen island was covered with trays of expensive hors d'oeuvres. The wine cellar I had spent months perfecting was fully stocked, though I noticed the bottles were ones I had never purchased. More charges on my card, I assumed. I walked through the house, taking it all in. The living room had been arranged for entertaining, with furniture positioned perfectly around the fireplace. The guest bedrooms on the second floor had been prepared, beds made with luxury linens I had never bought. They had truly moved in and taken over. I heard voices and went to the window. My family was arriving. I recognized Dad's car first, then Mason's beat-up Honda that I had made the down payment on 2 years ago when his credit was too shot to get approved. Behind them, a convoy of vehicles. The guests were arriving. I stood in my own foyer, holding my $4,000 bottle of wine, and watched my family walk in like they owned the place. Mom was radiant in a designer dress I did not recognize. Probably another charge on my card. Dad wore a new suit. Mason had his arm around Peyton, his fiancée of 6 months, a woman who had made it very clear she was excited to marry into a family with real estate holdings. They saw me standing there and froze. Valerie, Mom recovered first, her voice dripping with false warmth. You're here early. We wanted to surprise you by having everything ready. Surprise me, I repeated slowly, by throwing a party in my house, on my credit card, and telling everyone it belongs to you. The mask slipped from Mom's face for just a second. I saw calculation there, and annoyance. Then it was back. The concerned mother expression she had perfected. Honey, you are overreacting. We just wanted to help you celebrate your success. By erasing my name from the invitations? Well, we did not want people to think you were bragging. We know how humble you are. That was when Mason spoke up, his voice sharp with irritation. Jesus. Val, can you not make everything about you for once? We are trying to do something nice. Something inside me snapped. Maybe it was the casual way he dismissed me. Maybe it was seeing Peyton smirk behind him. Maybe it was watching guests filter in, greeting my parents as the hosts, complimenting their beautiful home. Maybe it was all of it. 11 years of it. 33 years of it. A lifetime of being invisible unless they needed something from me. That is when Mason grabbed the glass from a passing waiter and threw the wine in my face. The Bordeaux burned my eyes, soaked into my hair, ruined my clothes. I heard gasps from the guests who had witnessed it. But when I looked at my parents, they did not move. They did not apologize. Mom actually looked annoyed, as if I had caused a scene by having wine thrown at me. Don't come here causing trouble. You homewrecker, Mason said, loud enough for people to hear. Homewrecker. In my own home. This party is for real family only, Mom added. And her voice had an edge now, the pretense completely gone. That was when I wiped my face, pulled out my phone, and called 911. And that brings us back to where we started. The 911 operator stayed on the line with me. I could hear her typing, dispatching units. Officers are en route. Ma'am, are you in immediate danger? I don't believe so. But I am requesting they remove the trespassers from my property immediately. Mason started toward me, but Dad grabbed his arm. Don't. She's serious. Damn right I'm serious, I said, and my voice did not shake. I felt calm, calmer than I had in years. Everything suddenly seemed very clear, very simple. You have been stealing from me. You have been lying to these people. You assaulted me in my own home, and now you are going to leave. Mom's face went red. We are your parents. You cannot do this to us. You just told me I'm not real family. So no, you are not my parents right now. You are trespassers who assaulted me and committed fraud. The sirens were audible now, growing closer. Some of the guests started to leave, clearly not wanting to be part of whatever was happening. Others stayed, probably for the story they could tell later. I stood there, wine dripping from my hair, holding my expensive bottle like a weapon, and waited. 2 sheriff's deputies arrived, Ramirez and Lopez. They were professional and calm. I showed them my identification and the property deed on my phone, which I had photographed for exactly this purpose. This is my property. These people, I gestured to my family, do not have permission to be here. My brother just assaulted me by throwing wine in my face, as you can clearly see. And they have been representing themselves as the owners of this property to plan an event on my credit card without my authorization. Deputy Ramirez took notes while Deputy Lopez spoke quietly into his radio. Mom tried her best concerned parent routine on them. Officers, thank God you are here. This is just a family misunderstanding. My daughter is sometimes overly emotional. We were just trying to help her celebrate her success. I pulled up the invitation on my phone and showed it to Deputy Ramirez. Does this look like helping me celebrate? My name appears once, at the bottom, as the hired designer. They told all their guests this was their property. Is that true? Ma'am? Ramirez asked Mom. Well, we just thought it would be less presumptuous if we worded it that way. We did not want Valerie to seem like she was showing off. So you committed identity fraud and theft, I said flatly. $33,000 on my credit card for this party. I have the statements right here. I showed them on my phone. Lopez called something into his radio. Dad tried a different approach. Officers, surely we can work this out as a family. There is no need to involve the law. Sir, your daughter is the property owner and is reporting an assault and possible fraud. We have to follow protocol. Ramirez turned to me. Ma'am, do you want to press charges for the assault? Mason looked panicked now. It was just wine. It was a joke that went too far. Assault is assault, Lopez said calmly. And given the value of the liquid thrown, this could potentially be charged as assault with additional property damage. A $4,000 bottle of wine. I looked at the shattered glass on my floor and made a decision. Yes, I want to press charges. I also want them removed from my property immediately. And I want a restraining order preventing them from returning. Valerie, please, Dad said. And for the first time in my life, I heard him actually beg me for something. Don't do this. We're sorry. We made a mistake. A mistake. I repeated. A mistake is forgetting my birthday. This was calculated. This was planned. And I am done. That is when Mason lost it completely. He lunged toward the dining room, grabbing the edge of the elaborately set table and flipping it. Crystals shattered. The custom champagne tower I had paid $3,000 for crashed to the ground. Bottles exploding. He grabbed bottles from the bar and smashed them against the floor, screaming about how I was ruining everything, how I was selfish, how I was destroying the family. Lopez had him in handcuffs in under 10 seconds. Mason fought against them, still shouting. Peyton started crying, backing away. I did not know, she kept saying. I did not know it wasn't their house. Mason said his parents bought it. The guests who had remained fled. Nobody wanted to be part of this disaster. Deputy Ramirez read Mason his rights while Lopez called for backup. Within 30 minutes, my entire family was being escorted off the property. Mason in handcuffs for assault and destruction of property. Mom and Dad under the threat of arrest if they did not leave immediately. This isn't over. Mom hissed at me as she walked past. You are going to regret this. No, I said quietly. I really don't think I will. After they left? After the backup units cleared the remaining guests. After the deputies took my full statement and photographed the damage and my wine-stained clothing. I stood alone in my destroyed dining room. $33,000 in damage. Not counting the original $33,000 party I had funded. I should have felt sad. I should have felt guilty. I should have felt like the terrible daughter they had always implied I was. Instead, I felt light. I felt free. I called Evelyn. It's done. I said, they're gone. Good. She said simply, I'm coming up. Don't clean anything. Don't touch anything. I'm bringing Zelda. Zelda Morrison arrived the next morning with Aunt Evelyn. Zelda was a force of nature, a woman in her 50s who had built her career on protecting people from exactly this kind of family abuse. She walked through the property with a camera, documenting everything. Every broken glass, every wine stain, every shattered bottle, the smashed champagne tower, the flipped table. This is good, she said, which seemed like a strange thing to say about my destroyed home. The more evidence we have, the stronger your case. Case? Zelda looked at me over her glasses. Sweetheart, they assaulted you, committed fraud, destroyed your property, and have been financially exploiting you for years. We are not just pressing criminal charges. We are going after civil damages. Over the next week, Zelda built a case that was airtight. The criminal charges against Mason for assault and destruction of property were just the beginning. She drafted a demand letter to Jerry, Donna, and Mason for $61,000 in damages, $33,000 for the party charges, $28,000 for the destroyed property and cleanup. But the real genius was what she did next. Through some research, Zelda discovered that Mom was the president of the Napa Valley Estates Homeowners Association, a prestigious position she had held for 3 years. The HOA bylaws required board members to disclose any legal disputes involving property in the area. Zelda sent a formal notification to the HOA board about the pending civil case, complete with the police report and photographic evidence. She will have to resign or face removal, Zelda explained. The board cannot have a president who is involved in property fraud and assault. Good, I said. And I meant it. Zelda also drafted a no-contact order as part of the civil settlement. Any violation would result in immediate legal action. She gave them 10 days to respond to the demand letter and agree to the terms, or we would file in civil court. I expected them to fight. I expected denials and counterattacks. What I got was silence for 8 days. Then, on the 9th day, an email from a lawyer representing Jerry and Donna. They agreed to pay the $61,000 and sign the no-contact agreement. Mason would plead guilty to misdemeanor assault and destruction of property in exchange for probation and anger management classes. They're folding, Zelda said with, quote, satisfaction. They know they don't have a leg to stand on. But I knew it was more than that. In the week since New Year's, I had heard through Evelyn about the fallout. Mom had been forced to resign from the HOA board after an emergency meeting. The story had spread through their social circle like wildfire. Dad's company had launched an internal investigation after someone anonymously reported that he had been using his corporate card for personal expenses, including party planning. Mason had lost his job after missing shifts due to court dates. Their world was imploding, and I had not even finished yet. 3 weeks after New Year's, I stood in Zelda's San Francisco office across from my parents. Mason was not there. He was dealing with his own legal troubles. It was just the three of us, plus the lawyers. Jerry pushed the cashier's check across the table. $61,000. He would not look at me. Donna's hands shook as she signed the no-contact agreement. She had aged a decade in 3 weeks. Her hair had more gray. The lines around her mouth were deeper. "This is it, then," Dad said quietly. "You're really going to cut us off completely." "You cut me off emotionally when I was 12, I said. "I'm just making it official. We're your parents," Mom whispered. "We loved you." "No," I said, and my voice was steady. "You loved what I could do for you. You loved my money and my success and the image of having a successful daughter when it was convenient. But you never loved me. If you had, you would not have stolen from me. You would not have tried to take credit for my work. You would not have assaulted me in my own home. Valerie, please," Dad started. But Zelda cut him off. "Mr. Miller, the no-contact order is now in effect. Any further communication from you or your wife to my client will result in legal action. That includes this conversation. I suggest you leave." They left. I watched them walk out of the conference room. Two people who had given me life but never really loved me. And I felt nothing. Not sadness. Not relief. Just nothing. And that nothing felt better than all the years of hoping and waiting for their approval. I sold the Napa property 6 weeks later. The scandal had actually made it more desirable. A tech CEO bought it for $2.3 million. A $300,000 profit over what I had invested. I could have kept it, but I did not want it anymore. It was tainted with their presence, with their betrayal. I wanted something that was wholly and completely mine. With the profit, I bought a 2-bedroom condo in Soma, San Francisco. Floor 2, ceiling windows, a rooftop deck, walking distance to my favorite design studios. It was perfect. It was mine. And nobody could take it from me. The fallout for my family continued long after I had moved on. Mason and Peyton broke up. She made it very clear to everyone that she had been under the impression she was marrying into money, not drama and legal troubles. Mason moved back in with Jerry and Donna, who had been forced to downsize their own home after Dad's demotion cost him a significant portion of his salary. Mom's social standing never recovered. The women who had once fawned over her at country club luncheons now whispered about her. The invitations dried up. She was toxic by association. I heard all of this through Evelyn, who remained plugged into the family gossip network. I did not ask for updates, but she gave them anyway. And I would be lying if I said I did not feel a grim satisfaction hearing about each new disaster that befell them. But the truth was, I did not think about them much anymore. I was too busy living. Valerie Designs took off in ways I had never imagined. My old clients came back. New clients found me. The story of the woman who sued her own family for stealing her success became a strange kind of legend in San Francisco's design community. Instead of hurting my reputation, it enhanced it. People saw me as someone who stood up for herself, who would not be pushed around, who valued her own worth. Those were the kinds of qualities people wanted in a designer. I landed a contract with a major tech company to design their new headquarters. Then a boutique hotel chain hired me for a complete renovation of their West Coast properties. My calendar filled up 2 years in advance. I hired an assistant, then 2 more. I moved into a larger office space. I was busier than I had ever been, and I loved it. But more than the professional success, I loved the personal peace. I spent Thanksgiving with Evelyn and a group of her friends, laughing over wine and perfectly cooked turkey. I spent Christmas at a cabin in Tahoe with my assistant and her family, learning to snowboard and drinking hot chocolate by the fire. I spent my 34th birthday at a spa in Carmel with 3 women I had met through a professional networking group. Women who had become real friends. I blocked all the old phone numbers. I left all the family group chats. I did not mark birthdays or holidays in my calendar. The mental space that had once been occupied by worry and anxiety and hope and disappointment was now filled with work I loved and people who actually cared about me. One evening, about 6 months after the New Year's disaster, I stood on my rooftop deck watching the sunset paint San Francisco gold and pink. I held a glass of wine. Not the $4,000 vintage I had wasted on my family, but a perfectly good $20 bottle from Trader Joe's. I raised it to the sky, to myself, to the life I had built without them. To freedom, I said out loud. To nobody and everybody. My phone buzzed. A text from Evelyn. Dinner next week? I miss my favorite niece. I smiled and texted back. Your only niece. But yes, I would love to. That was family. Not the people who shared my blood but treated me like an ATM. Not the people who claimed to love me while using me. Family was the people who showed up when I needed them. Family was the people who celebrated my success instead of stealing it. Family was the people who loved me for who I was, not what I could do for them. I spent 33 years learning that lesson, and it cost me $61,000 and a house in Napa Valley to finally understand it. But standing there on my rooftop, in my own space, living my own life, surrounded by people who truly cared about me, I knew it was worth every penny and every moment of pain. Real family is not about blood. It is about respect. And anyone who cannot give you that does not deserve a place in your life, no matter what their DNA says. So here is my question for you. How long are you going to let people treat you like you don't matter? How many years are you going to sacrifice your peace for people who don't appreciate you? When are you going to realize that walking away from toxicity is not giving up on family? It is choosing yourself? If this story resonated with you, hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about people who chose themselves over toxicity. And drop a comment telling me, have you ever had to cut off family for your own well-being? What was your breaking point? I want to hear your stories. Remember, you deserve to be loved, respected, and valued. And if the people around you cannot give you that, it is time to find people who can.